大家好，早上好。今天给大家讲讲这个multi-tenancy 和这个如何把blockchain 的 system deploy 和deploy 到这个Kubernetes cluster 上面啊。先做一个自我介绍。我叫李彤，是 IBM 的高级工程师。我主要的工作呢就是这个叫 Developer Advocate。你可能不太了解这个工作主要是做什么。其实我们主要是在这个 Open Source Community 然后把这个 Open Source 的这个开发和这种这些technology 呢带到这个公司里面去，给不同的那个单位来讲解，就是说这个在这个开源社区里头一般这个工作的方式如何做一些开发。那我主要的这个工作重点呢就是那个云计算方面加那个容器和就是区块链的这些开发的工作。那我特别热衷的就是关于这个自动化的这个叫 automation 还有这个把大型的那个系统怎么能够 deploy 那我在那个开源社区呢，主要是做这个 Trello 这些方面的工作这是我简单一个介绍。我下面改到用英文来讲哈，因为我在国外真的住了很长时间，很多这个名词我不知道怎么用中文来讲，所以我觉得我用中文讲得结结巴巴的哈。Okay, now I'm gonna switch to English, so it will be easier for me to say those terms. So we have a little agenda here. First, I will talk a little bit about the Hyperledger Fabric. Through the conference, there are quite few actually talks about Fabric, but I will just give a little bit of highlight, and from my own understanding, what Hyperledger Fabric is different from other blockchain technologies or products. Then we're going to talk about the typical Hyperledger Fabric topology. How do you actually lay out the Fabric network? Then we're going to talk about how you're going to deploy from a different perspective. How you're going to deploy a Fabric network. Let's say you have a Fabric network. How do you actually expand it? You have more people come in. How do you join your Fabric network? Okay. Then, if we have time, we're going to do a little bit of Q&A. And during the talk, you are very welcome to raise your hand and ask questions. You can stop me anytime you like. So I wanted to have this talk as like a more interactive, not just me talking. So you can ask questions, then we can have some discussions. Okay. During this conference, as I said, many people already talk about Hyperledger Fabric, but from their own perspective. This is from my perspective. Okay, so obviously, Hyperledger Fabric is an open source project funded by Linux Foundation. In the Hyperledger Fabric, actually leverage container technologies. So if you look at how Fabric components actually get distributed, you will know all the components are packaged as container images on Docker Hub. You can download any of those components, even include the tools which generate, let's say, certificates, all that kind of stuff. Right? So everything pretty much packaged as a container available on Docker Hub. You can pull down. And when we talk about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin or Ethereum, people often think that those cryptocurrencies equivalent to blockchain. In my view, that's really a misunderstanding. Blockchain is a technology. The currencies, cryptocurrencies actually are applications based on your blockchain technology. So in Fabric term, the application actually is called chain code, right? So let's say you actually wanted to develop some application for banking or for, I don't know, patent, for education purposes. Those things will be actually developed as chain code. Okay, so you actually install this chain code onto Fabric networks and make up your applications. Okay, Hyperledger Fabric actually is a platform. Many people ask me, so what do you mean by platform? I normally give them example like, if you want to sell something, let's say you actually make hat, okay? You want to sell a hat, right? You can set up a booth somewhere, say, hey, this is what I made and sell, right? Or you can go on Amazon or Alibaba and say, hey, I'm going to just use that platform, right? Sell my hat, right? A lot of things has been done for you, right? So in that case, Amazon or Alibaba actually is just a platform for you to do business. So Fabric actually is that platform, right? So when you want to develop applications, you actually develop chain code. So in the sense that Fabric is a platform for you to actually create probably industry-specific applications. The other thing I think is most unique to Fabric is that Fabric is permission-based, right? You probably can ignore all other three parts, but the last one, the permission-based, is truly unique to Fabric. What I mean by that is Fabric network actually is the information on Fabric network is controlled. Okay, it's not like Bitcoin or Ethereum network, right? You can fully join, and you can see what information actually is placed on the ledger. Right, Fabric is different. The information placed on the ledger actually is access controlled. So not everybody want to see them will be able to see them. Okay, so you have to go through a process, get proper permission to be able to see the information on the chain. Okay, so this is very different. The reason why it's made so is because there's so many real-world applications that require the information to be private. Okay, for example, if I transfer some money to somebody, I do not want everybody know that I have had this transaction with that person. Or they say I have some information, I own something, right? I don't want everybody to know that, right? So this is actually is really, really important for many, many industries. You cannot just say, hey, I put all the information in a public, right? That's what the public, I don't know, what's the word? 公链是不是? Right. So let's look at the Hyperledger Fabric network. If you look at the Hyperledger Fabric network, you normally will find orders, peers, and chain code. Probably you cannot physically see them, right? This is the application running on your peer, right? And also some applications from client side. For example, you may have application that you can install on your phone or your computer, which actually request transactions or look at the transactions in the past or that kind of thing, which will be normally your client-side application. Then you have the chain code, as I mentioned earlier, running on your peers, right? So normally, when you look at the Hyperledger Fabric network, you will see those things, right? The graph on the right-hand side, and then you can see that I currently have quite a few organizations, right? So let's talk about organizations because we talk about permission-based blockchain system, right? So how do you actually organize those nodes on your network? So we naturally have this term called organization. It's like a company, right? Like IBM is organization, is a company. So when IBM wanted to participate in a Fabric network, actually that is considered as one organization. So each organization can have many peers, can also participate in ordering system. Okay, so you can see that on my on the right hand side of the slide, I have the green bubbles, right? Each bubble actually represents a organization. Now in this organization, you have different component, either is a peer or older node. Then on the surrounding area, then you see those. You see this actually represent applications, right? Those applications could be a mobile application or some desktop application, right? Then on a peer, actually will be the chain code running. So component ownership, I talk about the organization. So those peers, all orders can belong to different organizations, right? So each organization should be responsible for the node that they own, okay? So for example, the top one, it's called org A. Currently there are 3 peers inside that organization. So the admin of the org A will be responsible for those nodes, right? So most likely, in terms of the network operations, that admin will be responsible to contact with other admins on the network for expanding the network. Okay, any questions? Yeah. Okay, right. When we talk about blockchain system, we always know that there's a concept of consensus, right? How do we actually agree that a transaction is true, right? For Bitcoin, you actually have this proof of work, right? That actually you mine the hash code, right? So that's the way proof actually you have really verified this particular transaction, right? For Fabric network, actually consensus is done a little bit different. So each peer, each application actually create the transaction. The transaction request send it to peer and send to order. Then the order actually put all the transactions in a sequence. Okay, so order node, the only purpose is to actually, in terms of consensus, is to put all the transactions in a particular order. That order is unique. Okay, that the transaction in that sequence will be eventually pushed to all the peer nodes. Okay, so that way we know which transaction happens first, which transaction happens second, right? This is to prevent the double spending problem. Let's say I only have $10 in my account. I want to give to him. Also, at the same time, I give to other people. How do you actually prevent that from happening, right? Only when you have those 2 transactions in the right order, you can see that the second transaction cannot go through. Okay, so the ordering system, the purpose is to actually put all the transactions in order, in a sequence. Okay, this is in a way that it's to accomplish that consensus through all the entire fabric network. Excuse me? How often?
Yes.
Okay. The transaction, the transaction come in, we'll put in a sequence as the transaction comes in. So there is no particular, unless you talk about how many, unless you talk about how do you actually cut a block, okay? Because transactions actually make, a lot of transactions make a block, right? How often you actually cut a block. You see what I'm saying?
No, because you say you put it into sequence, then you know if this transaction, the $10 transfer to two persons, but if organization A information and organization B information come at the same time, which one do you transfer? The one comes first?
No. Okay. Let's say, okay. Let's say you actually, I sent $10 to this gentleman first, right? Then I send at the same time to you, for example. But this is the two transactions, right? Those two transactions will come to ordering system. Okay. The ordering system actually will based on some algorithm put them in a sequence. Okay. Right? So this sequence of transactions will eventually make a block, right? This block will push to all the peers, right? But one of these transaction actually is invalid, right? So when the peer actually receive all this, regardless how the transactions is put in the block, when the peer receive that, it will say the second one is invalid, but the sequence is unique, is set for every peer. It's not like give this peer the first comes first. In the other one, the second comes first, right? That's not the case because all the peers get the block from an ordering system. Okay, there's only one ordering system. You with me? So the transaction, the second transaction actually will be marked invalid. The transaction though will be still part of your ledger.
Okay, but if, for example, organization B cannot connect to the ordering services for certain time, it cannot do anything, or? If organization A, the peer service, cannot connect to the, it lost the internet network connection with the ordering services, then the peer system cannot do anything, or it can still do something.
You're saying if there is one peer disconnected from network, right? So, if it's disconnected from an ordering system, that peer can still confirm, can still endorse some of the transactions, but it will not be able to grow its ledger because it's disconnected from the ordering system, right? So its ledger will actually stop at a certain length, right? So it can grow its ledger. So when more transactions come in, actually, it cannot do anything.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so when we try to deploy a fabric network, there are so many different ways. Actually, you can do this based on what you want to do, right? Let's say you actually start a new fabric network, It's completely new, right? There's nothing exists yet. So what you want to do is, I call it seeding a Hyperledger Fabric network, right? So you start from scratch. You got nothing right now, so you're starting with order and peers, right? So things have to start somewhere, right? So this is initially how you set up things. So normally you would do order nodes, and then maybe peer node or not, right? But older nodes have to be there first for you to have a fabric network. If you don't have an older system, you don't have a fabric network. Okay. Then let's say there is a fabric network already running there. You are the organization, you wanted to actually do something, right? It's like, for example, we have Bitcoin network. Now you figured that you wanted to mine Bitcoins, right? So you can set up a machine and start doing that. So in a sense, just organization just want a peer node is similar to that, right? You have a fabric network already running somewhere. Now you figured, I wanted to join that fabric network, do things, right? In that case, you normally just need to set up a peer nodes. We're going to talk about this more actually later. So the environment actually run Hyperledger Fabric components. As I mentioned earlier, Fabric actually was developed and packaged as containers. So obviously, most of the deployment is container-based. But you can still run native executable if you want to. And if you don't have a lot of confidence in container technology, probably you can run the executable natively on your machine. There's nothing prevents you from doing that. You can certainly do that. And either it's a physical or virtual machines. So this is where the multi-tenancy comes to play. I have a fabric network running in my own data center. Now you want to start your own, fabric nodes, peer nodes, wanted to join my fabric network. So you can set up the peer in a place, in the environment that you prefer. Okay. There's so many different ways you can do that, in IBM, we actually run all the fabric network, use Kubernetes. Every node actually is a Kubernetes pod. I work on Cello, specifically the Ansible agent, which actually take the user input and deploy fabric network, either order only or peer only, or both order and peer altogether onto a given Kubernetes cluster. I will show you a little bit of detail later on. I think we have 2 more minutes. So if you want to just deploy a peer order only, say, hey, I'm starting a fabric network. So you can actually use this kind of configuration. Okay, you can see I give a order, a define 3 order nodes, right? Very simple. In the YAML file, actually, you can create this and use the Ansible agent and just go ahead and deploy 3 nodes ordering system. So this is like your seed. You're starting something, right? Or you say, hey, I know fabric network is already running somewhere, and I only want to boot up 2 peer nodes. And then once I boot up the peer nodes, then I can join my peers to a given fabric network. Okay. Or you can actually say, hey, I'm not only doing the ordering and also doing the peer. Then you can actually use the right-hand side configuration to start up a 3-node ordering system and total a 6-node peer. Right? They belong to different organizations. Right? This just give you example that you can use Ansible agent to deploy a Fabric network, whatever the way you want. Okay, it's very flexible. So now you're probably wondering, how do you actually expand the Hyperledger Fabric, right? So let's say we already have a Fabric network running, right? In this case, we have an ordering system sitting in the middle, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe dot, dot, dot. I don't know how many, and through orgx. So you have that many organizations already participating in your Fabric network, right? Now you have a new organization called org new want to participate in your network. So how actually you would do that, right? So your goal is that org new eventually become the right-hand side chart that's a part of your Fabric network, which can do transactions and see things, right? So how do you actually do that? So what is actually the process, right? So we're going to talk about the process. So when you want to actually expand your Fabric network, I don't know how much you know about Fabric. Actually, when you say you're part of a Fabric network, what it really means is that your peer or your organization now is part of a channel, okay? So first thing you want to do that is you have to create a Hyperledger Fabric channel, right? Then you will need to install the channel management chain code, okay, to help you to actually make the job easier to bring new organizations into your Fabric network. And this is not absolutely necessary. You can use a menu process to do channel update, but okay, the working group that I have a link at the bottom. Okay, this is the Linux Foundation funded working group. The whole purpose is that to make this process a lot easier. So you don't have to do a lot of manual steps to expand your Fabric network. So you install the management chain code into the channel that you want to expand. Then you and you want to make sure that the chain code actually is there to allow new members to join. Okay, so again, this is not to this is not to this is to help you go through a lot of steps that if without this you will have to do those manually. Okay. So what you should do? First, you want to create as a new organization. You want to create a new request, a join request. Say, hey, I know there's a Fabric network running there. Now I want this organization to join that Fabric network. So what did I do? I needed to create a new request, and as the admin of this new organization, I will have to send this new request to one of the admins who manage those current Fabric network. Okay, we can use the email or whatever way to send that request to the admins. Okay, then the admin will receive your request, will actually create a channel update proposal. Eventually, the proposal sent to other admins on the network. Then those admins can sign and say, hey, yes, I approve this new organization to join this Fabric, or say, no, I don't want this new organization to join. Okay, so this is the signature. It's more like a consensus algorithm, right? As soon as you get enough of the signature, let's say you have 20 organizations already in your Fabric network. If your channel policy says the majority of the organizations have to approve then you have to get probably more than 13 signatures from all those 20 organizations. That only after that, this new organization can actually participate in your channel. Okay, so other admins will either approve or disapprove the request. If the one of the admin, let's say admin A, actually collect all the approval signatures and eventually submit the channel update, then the new organization now become part of your Fabric network. Okay. So our working group actually created this dashboard application, right? I have the again the URL on the right hand side. So this screen capture actually just shows the process. So let's say the admin A, to use example I had previously, the admin A will use the request that the new organization admin sent, will create an update proposal. Then the updated proposal will show up on the dashboard. Then other admin actually will be able to actually simply click the sign here. Simply click the sign, which is to approve. If you don't want to approve, of course, you don't want to sign it, right? So other admins will be able to do that, use their own dashboard. Of course, that's the same application, but it could be running in many, many different places. So once one admin actually signs that, you will be able to see the signatures here. And if you have two admins sign, then all the signature will show up on your dashboard. Okay, so let's say we have more actually required signatures. So other organizations all sign them, then you will see them in this list. And eventually, don't have that. And eventually, the admin will be able to just hit apply. So the channel now is updated. The new organization become the part of the Fabric network. Okay, so actually this is really just the client side of application, right? Because this is the user interface. It just shows you how user can interact with your system. So this basically is the chain code we actually developed to help organization admins to do all this type of work. So just like any other chain code application, so this is very simple. It gives you a few methods, allow you to create a new proposal and retrieve the proposal. We use this as like a data store to save all the requests and everything, right? So we are actually using the Fabric provided functions to manage Fabric. Okay, so that's I think we have 2 minutes. That's everything I want to talk about. So we have 2 minutes for questions.
I'm not so familiar with Fabric, but from your talking, I think Fabric is still kind of a centralized system, or?
Right, when you say that, actually you mean really the ordering system is centralized. That is true. But now we actually support Raft. We support Raft as a consensus mechanism. I started Fabric 1.4.1. Now you can use Raft. And then before that, you can only use Kafka to do the ordering system. Now we can use Raft. Actually, when you use Raft, it's no longer, centralized. Okay, many organizations can participate in ordering system, so you can have many ordering node participate in your Raft network. Okay, so it won't be centralized anymore. All the organizations can have your Raft ordering node.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, I have a question. There are so many blockchain as a service platform in the market. So we know Dianlong bus platform, and so why they don't use the shallow?
Why they do not use Cello?
Yeah. So many companies build their bus platform. This question.
Oh, so your question is why not everybody using Cello deploy their Fabric network?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. To be honest, actually, I mentioned earlier, there's so many different ways to build your Fabric network, right? You can use a container. You can choose not to use container, right? There's so many ways. Actually, even let's say you choose use container, there's still so many different ways. For example, you can use Kubernetes operator to boot up your pods, right? Cello actually is just one way. Obviously, there are many other ways you can do things, but Cello. I mean, it's a deployer tool. Many people probably find it useful. Other people probably didn't find it useful. So again, there's so many different ways to do the same thing. People have their own preference.
Nice.
So yeah.
Thank you.
But Cello is getting better though, and I hope everybody can, join the community and start helping out and make it better.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for your question though.
Okay, thank you. As you say in order is a Raft-based system.
Raft.
Yes, and I want to ask that every order should be trustable in an order system.
Every order should be trustable.
Because as you see, orders is a Raft system.
Okay.
Trusted.
Yeah, a good question. Actually, I said many times, Fabric network is a permission-based, right? For the order, it's the same thing. Let's say today, I want to join the Fabric network. I don't want to put up peer. I want to put an order, right? So when my order wanted to join the Fabric network, actually, I have to go through the same process. I have to prove to all other admins who I am, right? So they have to approve, actually, Tong's order node can join this network to serve as an ordering system. I have to go through that process. So my certificate will be part of the order channel, right? I cannot simply put up order, say, hey, I'm doing the order service. No, you have to go through the process. The process governor, if this node is trustable or not.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, all right, thank you very much.